La la la. Join video. La la la. Let's see, we're gonna do this. Let's be that guy instead. Okay. Ha. Cool. Ha. Ooh. All right. How about that stuff, sports fans? Ha. Ha. Hoo. Ha. Look at that. All right. Good morning. All right. What am I doing? I'm still gluing down stuff in my demonstration piece. Isn't that terrible? I am finishing up making my last decisions of what I want this to be and gluing them down with my glue stick. So yes, I'm just as bad as my students sometimes, not too often, sometimes. And so we will be getting started just very soon. It's almost the black crack of 9 o'clock on a cold and windy day. And I too would like to have a project that I can share. And so that is happening even as we speak. You guys are sure welcome to unmute your mics and talk about anything that you want to talk about. And I would chime in and try to like moderate the discussion if it requires moderation. Otherwise, we're looking at a big, beautiful, of course, weekend coming up for every.
You got any big plans?
What's that?
Do you have any big plans this weekend?
Who, me? Big plans?
Yeah.
I do. I'm taking my son over to Roseburg. He's going to do a motorcycle training course. And we couldn't get into something that was in Coos Bay, so we had to go all the way to Roseburg. So anyway, that means Saturday and Sunday in Roseburg. So that's a thing. And so.
That'll be exciting.
Well, could be
exciting. I hope the weather holds up.
Could be exciting, yes. Huh. Okay, so I'm trying to actually cover up some sins on my project here. I smudged my ink a little bit, and I'm trying to get my lines to come out even so that one of my tails of one of my lines covers up my ink smudge. Think that's going to work? I don't know. We're going to see. I got 2 more stripes, lines, linear forms to glue down here, and then I can give you guys my undivided attention. Whoops, does that go that way? No, yes, no, yes. Fine, it's gonna go that way, okay. You know how you don't wanna glue stuff down until you're ready to glue it down, otherwise it's in the wrong spot and you can't pick it up and you're gonna rip stuff, and so, oh my gosh. But I have been pushing these lines around on my desktop for these past many hours and days and stuff. And you know what? On any given day, a person can come up with just about any given composition that's fun. And so now I have one, voila, that we are going to talk about today. So I'm going to cap my glue stick and join you guys. And even, I guess, I have to bring over my overhead bird's eye cam to put over my workspace so we can do this. And so I have to run over and get that because it is over my sculpture maker's table from yesterday's sculpture class. So bear with me while I move my sculpture stuff. Okay. All right. So, yikes. Okay. So dancing this over in front of you guys and setting it down. This is a framework that holds another webcam that's right up above me so that we get something to talk about. It's nice to have stuff to talk about. And so as I clear away all of the cords and cables and get started here. Ha! That's us. All right. You know what? I might as well turn on my studio lights too, so that we can actually have our television studio experience here. And so again, voila, lighting. Lighting is a really important part of photography, video, television production. And so look at that. We have a lovely framed person in the compositional space here, because it's all about compositional space. And so let me just get the participants list coming up here. There's 9 folks in the chat already. That's fantastic. So I'm going to move that over here and make it so that I can see it just a little bit better. I'm going to open up the chat so that if you guys want to say things, but you don't want to say them out loud and you want to write them instead, the chat box is open for chatter. And so there's all that. Okay, oh my gosh. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Art 115. Good morning. Thank you all for being here this morning. Sorry about that rough opening to the thing as I was getting ready to do our projects today. We're going to be having a little bit of a critique. So if I can remind you, what I wanted us to do was to try to finish some pieces early for those of you who are really early adapters and quick at getting projects done. And please take a quick phone photograph or digital photograph of your piece, making sure that your phone is parallel to the picture plane of your piece so that we don't have any, distortion. Take a, make sure that your video card is so we don't have trapezoidal distortions. And then if you can email that to yourself and open it as a document on your desktop, then we can do share screen and see each other's projects this morning. Please feel free to leave the Zoom meeting for just a minute if you'd like to be able to do that and have an open digital photograph of your project for us to look at. You can attempt to use your webcam to try to show us your document, but if you are trying to hold it with shaky hands, that might not be as pleasant or as effective a way of sharing your composition with us. In the meantime, another housekeeping thing that we do is taking attendance in the morning. And so I'm just going to look at who's in the participants list because you are here and make sure that you are represented. So Autumn is there and Katrina is here and Ethan is there. Kiara, okay. And we have a guest lecturer today, computer science faculty member Piper is joining us today to observe the classroom. And so everybody welcome Piper into the classroom. Riley is here. Skylar is there. And do I have anybody else on the end of this list yet? Okay, so far 8 participants of you guys in the class are here. And one of me is here. So Caprina, Ethan, Kelsey. Okay, Riley and Skylar. Okay, and a guest. Okay, fantastic. So I want to open this up as a critique this morning of the project. A little bit of just where are we at here. I wanted to show you that we're trying to do a linear composition using line form in our compositional space. And we're trying to play with ideas of repetition of form and rhythmic line in a composition. And I'm happy to talk about mine, but I'd really like for you guys to kind of show us your projects too. We're using our Fashion Magazine as source material, trying to find places in the advertisements where we can find either black or light gray or perhaps a color area of a background of a photograph or something in one of the advertisements or photographs to sample and create linear elements that you can collage into a collage, and then move them around until you find the pleasing and appropriate line spacings, groupings, and group spacings, and to try to create a sense of variety and or rhythm, even if it's an um, uh, a syncopated kind of a rhythm. It can be a regular rhythm or a syncopated rhythm. Something that has a syncopation to it is a little bit more interesting from a rhythmic standpoint than just evenly spaced, rhythmic, linear elements across the page. Having said all that, I am open to anybody who would like to share this morning and do the screen share. I'm opening up screen share for multiple participants. Do I have any takers, any willing participants who want to just jump right in and see how things go this morning? Oh, you guys, you don't want me to call on people. That would be so nasty.
Here I go, I'll do it.
Riley, bless your heart. Thank you so much. Come on in, and I may just have to shut down a couple of these nasty screen things so that we can see yours. But please go ahead, Riley. I'm going to pin the video to you if I can. Otherwise, as you do your share screen thing, here it comes. You are the pinned video today. Ah, look at that. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to invite you to all open up your mics and unmute yourselves. And anybody can chime in here, from the general to the specific. What's that? Did somebody have a comment? Ethan? Oh, you guys are killing me.
I'm here.
I was just wondering, from the general towards the specific, what's the first thing that jumps out at you about this composition?
Well, I really like how they come out of the border. I missed the last Zoom class, so I don't know the requirements exactly, but I really like I like how they come out of the border a little bit.
Okay, and so we talked about this just a little bit during the last class period, that knowing the rules is one thing, and we like to follow the rules whenever we have to, whenever we can in art. But also part of being an artist and a designer is knowing when to break the rules a little bit. And so this basic rule of having a compositional space in a compositional format frame is a nice idea, and so that's kind of cool. But what happens if we cross the line a little bit? And so I would love you guys to kind of look at that today. Does that create a little bit more of a sense of interest, a little bit more tension, or is it just happening so much that it's also annoying to you? I'm interested in your ideas about this. What else does anybody notice about this as you've had a chance to look at it for a couple of minutes now?
I have something.
Yeah, please.
I like how all the cuts on the bottom and top are all going in the same direction, and I like the two colors in the middle.
Okay.
It's kind of almost a pattern.
That's great. If I can pick up on that, all of those diagonal cuts on the ends tend to create a sense of harmony in the composition. So all of the elements tend to be finished in a similar way. And so that is a factor of visual harmony in the composition. That's good. Do you guys see any, now you touched on this, but can you say or comment about anything that is a factor of difference or variety in the composition?
The color and the shapes are a little different. Some are straight lines and some are more curvy.
Good, brilliant, fantastic. Okay, so we do see a couple of contrasting colors in there. There's a blue line that is a straight line, and there is a burgundy line, if I don't miss my boat here, that seems to be a curving line. And so I am noticing now that there are both straight and curving lines in this thing. And that's interesting because we go curving, straight, kind of curving, straight, 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 curving, straight, straight-ish, then curving, curving. So it's kind of interesting how the character of the line has been manipulated throughout the composition from left to right. And So what do you guys think about that? How does that feel in terms of rhythmic, the rhythmic feel of the line to you visually?
If I can kind of chime in on my own,
Yeah, yeah.
my intention, I'm gonna sound crazy. I've gotten ill in the last 2 days, so I don't make sense, but I was trying to kind of use the outer lines, the way that they kind of curve in that sense, to make almost a frame of some kind, like within the composition. And I wanted it mentally to kind of look like not quite a curtain, but something like that, because I was watching a video of people playing music, and so I kind of envisioned it as like a stage, even though it's very abstract, and a stage, and the two colored represent musicians on the stage, like in the different dynamics that they might have while performing.
This is really good, Riley. I don't know if you guys can see my video up here, but the idea of having these two curving elements on the outside edges of the composition to be like framing devices, like you were talking about, almost like parentheses in a sentence. They work in a way to create a framing device for the composition, just like the actual linear frame, the format frame, is kind of a framing device. The format frame, the black thin line, creates a sense of of creating, defining what the compositional space is. And then when you go outside of that line, then that's kind of like the marginal space, the space outside the composition. And then you've used two elements inside your own composition as additional kinds of frames or framing devices. So that's very interesting. And I'm glad that you did that on purpose, deliberately, instead of, that was just an accident or something. So good on you for doing that. That's cool. Let's talk about the two colored linear elements that are towards the center, because they do become more of a focal point. They draw the viewer's eye to the center of the composition. And I'm noticing that it's not just dead center in the composition, that they are just left and right of dead center with a linear element, a black linear element in the exact center of the composition. And so I like the subtlety and the little bit of variety that's happening here. That's really good. I'm keeping one eye on the time, and I don't want to spend too much time on any one person's individual piece, although I'm also aware that there might not be a lot of projects that are done today. So having said that, is there anybody else who'd like to chime in, and anybody else who'd like to make, an additional comment?
I was gonna say the same thing about it being framed. I was gonna say it reminded me of like a gate, or like a Tim Burton like weird messed up gate, or like a curtain. I was going to say it looks like curtains almost, but also the two lines that are different colors kind of look like I know they don't have faces, but they look like they're facing away from each other.
Oh,
I don't know if that makes any sense, but yeah.
Well, that's cool. And I like your analogy to a set of curtains, the idea that curtains are pleated and have that, repeated kind of fabric drapery fold, the kind of drapery fold that we're looking for repeated in curtains. And there's enough repetition of form so that it really, really holds together in terms of composition. There's strong visual relationships between all of these elements. And there's just a little bit of variety in there that, so that it makes it interesting, and it's not just visually boring to us to look at either. So Riley, I want to thank you so very much for being brave and jumping in and sharing this for your first project. That's fantastic. Thank you very much. Oh my gosh, I'm back on the screen again. Now, is there anybody else who might have a piece that's sort of ready to go that you'd like to share? If you had a little bit of time here, possibly to photograph your piece, get it as an open file on your desktop so that we can share it together. I would love to be able to give you some feedback and talk about a piece. And I'll wait just a couple of moments here for anybody who wants to play our game. And
I'll do mine.
I heard I'll do mine. Hey, Well, that's great. Please go forward. You can do the share screen button at the bottom. And then once you click on your thing, please click your blue share screen button to complete the transaction. And that'll energize it and get it up on the screen for us. Here it comes. Oh my goodness. Holy smokes. Autumn, thank you so much for sharing. Autumn, always thinking outside the box. Okay, so this is wild. Okay, as I'm letting it kind of enter into, and settle in on my mind a little bit. Do you want to characterize this? Do you want to set us up for this? What were you thinking about when you put this together? Because that might help us in responding to it and that kind of thing.
Okay, so when I was making this, I have 2 cats, and they both have stripes on them. And I was kind of looking at them, and then I also have a zebra striped blanket. So I don't know, I think I got inspiration from those 2 things. Yeah. And then the 2 lines that are like the same color, I did that on purpose, so they're like kind of parallel from each other. But yeah.
Okay, Autumn. Wow. So there's several things that are jumping out at me about this. First, your linear elements have a real dynamic shape to them because they're not necessarily have parallel construction to the linear element. They are dynamic. And so, like the calligraphic line that we were introduced to in chapter 3 of the text, they seem to have that kind of calligraphic dynamic quality to the line. The line can start out thin, and then it can get thicker along its length, and it can vary its thickness along its length, and that's fine. That's really cool. It does get to be more of a dynamic shape, and so each individual line attracts us a little bit as a focal point. So there's all of that going on, but because they are alternating and fairly evenly spaced in the composition, those are factors of harmony that help hold the composition together so that it doesn't just blow up or fly apart, and that's good. The thing that I'm having a little bit of trouble with, I have to be frank with you, is that you went diagonal with your installation of all of them in the composition, which is it's a curveball for me, because I was expecting them either to be, horizontal or vertical in a composition. And so your compositional space based on your format frame is vertical, and all of your elements are installed diagonally across that compositional space. And so it's very, very active. Diagonal lines, diagonal elements in a composition have more energy in them than a vertical element in the composition, and vertical elements have more energy in them than horizontal elements, which kind of refer to the horizon line, to laying down in bed and sleeping. Usually horizontal things are low energy kinds of lines, and these as diagonals are a very high energy line. Did you intend for this to be a very energetic, high energy composition?
Not exactly, because, well, kind of, because at first when I did it, I tried vertical and then I tried horizontal, and I thought it looked boring, honestly. And then I, set them all up like this, and I liked it. And I was like, yeah, this looks right. But to be honest, but yeah.
Okay. There's just a little, and I don't mean this as a harsh criticism. I do want to say this as a way for all of us to consider and think about factors of harmony and factors of variety in a composition. So having prepared you for that, I just wanted to let you know that I don't mind the diagonal way that the composition is going. I like that. That's fine. I think that the thing for me that uh, possibly weakens the composition just a little bit is that there's a lot of variety going on. We've got a variety of different values. We've got black, and then we've got the high and medium key values in here, or this is possibly blue, so that's a color. And we've got this variety of different kinds of shapes where all of the lines are doing slightly different kinds of things. So for instance, you've got a straight edge on one part of the line and then a curving edge on the other part of the line. That becomes a very complex shape. And so sometimes, the eye is attracted to each individual shape, and then it kind of has to rip itself away and go to the next attractive shape, and then stop and pause on that for a minute to take it in, and then rip itself away to the next shape. So that's the one part there's almost too much variety in this piece. But it's growing on me, and it grows on the viewer as we spend time with it. And that's kind of what abstract art does. If you can spend enough time with the composition, and it has enough time to grow on you, then you can start to see the internal relationships of elements in the composition. You can kind of start to see what the artist was playing with in terms of vocabulary of form. And so all of these forms of yours that have a straight edge on one side and a curving edge on the other side, it's repeated here and here and here and here and here, which is good, and sort of here. And then we've got two of these that are elements that have their edges a little bit more parallel to each other, so that it's just kind of a curving line here and here. And so it takes the viewer a little bit longer to kind of figure this all out and decide, whether, oh, that satisfies my needs for, variety and harmony in a composition. I'm seeing like this high key gray element here and this high key gray element here are similar in shape, and you've distributed them through the composition. So that's another factor of harmony in there. You are very clever because you've got all kinds of interesting things that are woven together to create factors of harmony in the composition, while at the same time there's a lot of variety in this composition that keeps me busy and keeps my eye busy, kind of bouncing around inside the composition. So it's not a super harsh criticism. It's just me mansplaining, I guess, what I'm seeing as I'm seeing it, which is kind of perhaps annoying for you guys to have to listen to. But having said all that, does anybody else, or Autumn, Autumn, do you want to respond to any of that, or does anybody else want to chime in? And now that I've tried to critique it a little bit, does it make more sense to you now that we've kind of walked through the formal aspects of this? Or anyway, Autumn, do you have any response? Are you like disappointed that I'm not just totally rolling my socks up and down with joy because of this piece? Or do you see the complexities that are in there?
No, I love your criticisms. I love hearing it.
Well, nobody loves criticism. I've been doing this for 35 or 40 years, and I don't like criticism.
Fair enough.
In art and design, going through the critique process tends to toughen us up a little bit, so that when we get out in the professional world, then you're able to suffer the slings and arrows of criticism. When you have to make designs to satisfy a client, or when you're making art and it's in a gallery and it's being reviewed by critics, or whether or not it's being accepted and celebrated by your art public, those are the kinds of things that we need to toughen ourselves up to as artists. And sometimes you want to be open to the criticism so you can incorporate it into developing your own art. And sometimes you say, no, thank you, the criticism is interesting, but I'm going to stick to my guns because these are the principles that are important to me, and this is why I did this, and I want to stick to this because, yes, it does create tension in the viewer, and my intention was to create tension so the viewer would feel tension in the piece. So again, Autumn, did you have any of that in mind when you were creating this very energetic piece that has a variety of shapes, that are very cleverly kind of alternating with each other throughout the piece. Were you intending to create, kind of some higher level of artistic tension in the piece so that we would see it and, enjoy it for the tension that it's creating?
Yeah, in a sense, maybe not intentionally, because throughout high school, I've always had teachers kind of be like, I've always made something a little different than what the teacher assigned, or tried to make it a little different, pushing it a little bit. I've always done that. And I don't know, I feel like it just kind of fits. This one actually kind of fits my art style. Like, the squares are just squares kind of to me, but
Yeah.
this one kind of fits it. And, I like it.
Okay, all right. Well, I thank you for enduring, the critique. And, we went a little bit more in depth with this one because this one brought more to the discussion that gave us more time and some more things to talk about. So I appreciate that, and thank you very much for that. For everybody, I just want to remind everybody, if you want to stop sharing, that's fine. Another housekeeping announcement. When you finish this piece, please do photograph it and upload a photograph in the coursework in e-learning, because I really need to be able to receive uploaded photographs of the work so that I can do the proper grading, and that the grading happens in the coursework section of e-learning. So for any projects that are still out there, I think I've reopened most of the deadlines, due dates on the projects. So please turn in anything that's still out that hasn't been uploaded yet, and that'll give me a chance to get all caught up on the grading for you guys and get all your projects graded. I am not a stickler for hitting deadlines. I'm an artist myself, so I do like to put due dates on stuff so that it's not just completely open-ended, so that you won't do it, and then we don't have anything to critique and share with each other. But at the same time, if a deadline gets missed, a due date gets missed, it's like, just please get it in and you'll get full credit for it, because I really want to see your work and I want you to get it done. So having said all that, is there anybody else who today would like to share their piece? And I will try to take a breath and pause for anybody else who has a piece that they would like to share. Okay, not seeing a lot of people just running for the fences to do this. I did a piece myself. You saw me complete it as this Zoom meeting opened. And so I think I'd just like to take an opportunity to stick it out there and have you guys chime in a little bit and talk about this. So I'm going to my videos. I'm gonna turn on my overhead camera. And so that's our overhead. I'm putting I always put the pen here, and I've got something in detail here to help the webcam focus, because otherwise the webcam just goes nuts trying to focus on something. So try not to look at this as an element in the composition, but I would like to open this up to you guys. And you are not risking any kind of nastiness from me in terms of bad outcomes or anything like that. But I'd love to have you unmute your mics and walk into the critique process and just, make comments from the general towards the specific. What is the general thing that jumps out at you? What specifically do you notice about the composition? You can comment on the shapes of the lines, their groupings, how closely spaced they are, and how you feel the repetition of form might be happening in the composition. And please speak up if you are a little bit far away from your microphone, or if you don't have a good microphone, please get on in close. Ethan, you're always coming through just a little soft, so if you wanted to come in and join us at this point, get up close, or use lots of breath support to make your comments. But please unmute your mics, you guys, and jump in. Part of being an artist and a designer is mixing it up during the oral critique process.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes,
I
you're
the
coming through
quiet?
loud and clear.
Okay, good. Um, I like yours is kind of similar to Riley's. I think it was Riley's. But it's a little bit different. I like the three on the left that like flow together. And then I like your two little colors. I think those colors are cool.
Now, thank you. So, um, so you making some interesting opening comments. I was just wondering if anybody else or you would like to continue on, and can you describe what it is you see, maybe in terms of, do you see groupings of lines? Because you can count the lines, you can maybe describe how they are spaced, or uh, the proximity of the lines to each other, or how the groupings identify and become a group or a larger shape area of the composition, and that kind of thing. I'm trying to just promote general, you see the thing, and then we want to try to put words to that. We want to try to create a narrative where we can actually describe, with words, what we're seeing in the compositional space, and sort of sound like we know what we're talking about.
I see like 3 to 4 groups, honestly, because I see a group in the 3 on the left, because they, like Ethan said, they flow together very, almost perfectly, because they have basically the same amount of space between them. They have the same movement in them. Then on the right, with the 3 shorter ones and the gray or blue one in the center, they also kind of fit into each other, but not in the same exact rhythm. But where they curve fits into each other still, so it looks not as related, but it still has some relationship. And then the 3 in the center could be their own group, with the pink one and then the black one and then the shorter black one. But alternatively, the pink one and the smaller black one can be its own group, because of the way that they're also flowing together, because the 2 in the exact center have this dynamic where they're going almost opposite of each other. So they're not exactly bending with each other, and they're the only 2 that really aren't in any type of group, or like any ones that's in a close proximity. Those 2 are the only ones that don't really have a distinct relationship to each other flow wise, but they're just slightly overlapping, so that also adds its own layer of something.
Riley, you get an A for the day.
I would have talked longer, but I was like, oh gosh, here she goes again. But if I can compare it to maybe just something real quick as well, it looks almost like just kind of in a crowd of people, because you have like your groups all on the side. It looks like a couple of some kind. It almost reminds you of someone laying their head on someone else's chest, and then maybe the smaller one on the right of the pink or purple line could be like a child or something. So it kind of looks like a family and a gathering of people.
Well, thank you for all of that. And if I can just paraphrase a little bit of what you were talking about, we are kind of sort of looking at 3 distinct groups in here, and there are different ways of them relating to each other, and yet similar ways to relate to each other. So we've got 3 very similarly sized and shaped elements that are very closely together in proximity to each other. We've got ones that are similar. The pink one is almost flipped in terms of its spatial relationships to the other ones. So if this one, starts left and then comes right as an S curve, this one starts right and then comes left as an S curve. And otherwise, we have some shorter examples of some line segments in here. And so how does a shorter example of a line segment work with full-length line segments in this particular composition? We've got one possible way that they can work together in this subset, and one possible way in this subset. And it is kind of fun to look at what the negative spaces do. You've got a larger negative space. This is a negative space that's a different kind of a shape than any of the others, but so are these kinds of negative spaces in here. So this thing is sort of a challenge to see, whether there's enough harmony in this thing to hold everything together. There's certainly a bunch of variety, especially as you move into this third of the composition. Lots and lots of variety. But those are the kinds of things that we could argue about in a critique. Is there too much factors of difference in here so that it really doesn't hold together well as a composition? Or, is there enough similarity among the linear elements so that it still does, hold together as a composition? I'm also interested to see if this amount of negative space over here on this side of the composition between the last element in the composition and the format frame over here, if that bothers anybody because of the close proximity between this first element in the compositional space and the format frame over here. Because I left this space here just to see if it bugged anybody. And I want to know what bugs you guys. Is this an acceptable use of space over here, or does that really kind of create too much tension in your gut so that you don't like something like this? Or the little ends hanging out the outside of the format frame, or anything else like turning something the opposite direction in the composition. Do any of those kind of things tweak you guys enough so that it bugs you, or does it fall within what's acceptable in terms of variety in a composition versus a lot of harmony in the composition? Would anybody like to speak to that kind of tension in the composition?
I at first didn't like how the two in the middle overlapped, but then like when you first look at it, it kind of looks sporadic with the different lengths of the cuts. But then when you look at it more, you see how they flow together. And the two overlapping, making that circle in the middle, kind of draws your eyes towards the middle and creates that flow.
Thank you. Thank you very much. These are really good observations, and I do appreciate you guys bringing your observations to this. For some reason, I'm getting all choked up. Maybe I'm getting emotional. Thank you so much about this. So this has been probably one of the better critiques that we've had so far, if I can critique the critique, because I feel like you guys are getting more and more of a sense of becoming bold and willing to share your observations of stuff, even about mine, and that was good. And we're seeing we're seeing more variety in our projects, more originality and difference in our projects now, because you're not relegated to just 5 squares and the fairly limited amount of ways that you can compose the different squares in the first 2 of those kinds of projects. So I am appreciating this. So for the weekend, your assignment is to complete this and photograph it and upload it into the coursework to get points for it. I think our first deadline for this is, I can't remember now. It's coming up soon. It's either tonight or it's Sunday night is the first due date for this project. And then, of course, I've already stuck on an extension of another 2 or 3 days to make sure I get it by the middle of next week. So please get this one done. I want you guys to finish up your reading of chapter 3. Next week, we might be looking at a midterm quiz by Friday. So on Monday, I'm going to get out a study guide for the first couple of chapters, first 3 chapters that we've been reading, and a lot of the concepts that we've been going over so far, so that you've got a study guide that you can review for the quiz. The quiz is going to be 20 questions, multiple choice, and so it's not, a full-blown test or some kind of difficult essay exam. It's just, a quiz to check on your familiarity with the concepts that we've been covering so far. And of course, also on Monday, I'm going to start the next project. We are all going to do a drawing together, but you're all going to draw something different, because I'm going to ask you guys to actually build a small still life in your own dorm room or home, and so that you can draw the still life. I'm going to do a demonstration drawing my still life on Monday and show you my approach to drawing a still life. And then we're going to do a still life drawing together and then cover it with cross contour lines to finish it up. And this might take us more than a week. So I'm going to start the project on Monday, and we'll play with it Wednesday and Friday. There's also going to be the quiz on Friday, so it might even trickle into Monday of the following week. So it's a little bit larger project that we're going to do. It's a drawing project, but I think we're all going to have a lot of fun with it. Whether you know how to draw or not today, we're all going to be a lot better at drawing after the next 7 or 8 days. So it's something to look forward to. I think I'm going to call it a day for now. Let me just put up the participants list one more time just to make sure that I've got everybody in here, that including the folks who might have shown up late. Okay, that's good. And thank you so much for joining us today. I think, how about if I put my big face up there so I can say goodbye to you properly. And have a good weekend. Get your homework done and get it turned in, please. And I'll see you again on Monday morning. So have a good weekend. Thank you very much.